Hi, Valentino. Thanks for being the guest of this podcast for today. We've been like knowing each other for quite a long time, so always like a pleasure to chat. Like maybe if you want to start introducing a little bit yourself, how did you end up in Silicon Valley? What you're doing today?
Okay. Yeah. Hey, Eric. Thanks for having me today. I'm gonna give a brief introduction of myself. My name is Valentino Zegna. I'm currently a staff hardware engineer at Meta, working on AR glasses, and I've been in Silicon Valley, mostly San Francisco, for I think 11 years now. So yeah, I moved here in 2014, November 2014, right after finishing my master. And then I started working and, I started building my career in tech. So yeah, my master was in Chicago. So obviously in electrical engineering, and it was a double degree program between Torino and Chicago. It's called Top UIC. Many people actually that come here go through that program. It's a very cool double degree program for software engineers, electrical engineers, and also the Politecnico di Milano has it. So a lot of mechanical engineers as well. So I think it's one of the probably best ways to move to the States early in your life and get used to the life. First going to school, which is very different from Italy. And then also for people that want to stay, it offers a great opportunity. Not everyone wants to
Which are
stay.
like the main differences that you encounter like maybe studying in Europe, especially in Italy versus like maybe in the US?
Yeah, I mean, I can only talk for UIC, which is the school in Chicago that I went to. Obviously, I think the US has a lot of very high quality schools, and each one is different, right? So someone that goes to Stanford or MIT will have different experiences. I did find the Politecnico di Torino in Italy more challenging in many ways, like many ways. First, the amount of class time, right? We have way more class time in Italy. So many hours. Like I remember spending, all day or like half a day in school, while in Chicago it was like 1 hour, two. So I used to live close by and just walk to school for 1 hour and then go home and have all the time. Right. In Italy, I could barely go back home to eat. So I actually had a motorcycle, and so I would just go from the Polytechnic, go home, cook, eat, back.
Yeah.
All within 1 hour, right? So yeah, very different, like much slower pace, but at the same time, it's not lower expectations, right? So you still have to go through midterms, finals, quizzes. So there is way more checkpoints along the way. While in Italy, you are more on your own, right? Maybe it's a little bit different during your master. I remember during my master doing more projects, right? So each course had a project. So that keeps you busy for like, you know, for the whole semester. While in the US, I had a lot of quizzes, a lot of like they keep testing you, right? More often to make sure that you are keeping up. But there is way less class time. So a lot of the education is on you, right? Like they give you the syllabus, they tell you what you need to know, but then it's also up to you to kind of figure it out. While in Italy, they teach you everything. So the professor is going to go through the entire thing, right?
What do you think that are the activities that might be actually useful? Because of course you have more free time in the US, and usually, at least for the more like ambitious students, they end up doing I don't know, internships or like doing a little bit of research, other projects. That is something that maybe like in I don't know, in Europe is like a little bit more difficult also to have time to do like those things. So how did you approach this in US?
Yeah, I think there is a different mindset in the US compared to Italy in terms of how practical you are in university with your time and with the things you do, right? So in Italy, it's about, going through the university, studying and getting grades, like good grades. So the goal is to get 30, right? 30 out of 30 or like, more. So that's your goal. The goal is not to network. It's not to like, I don't know. It's not to do something practical. The goal is to excel academically. While here, of course, you want to excel academically, but then people also try to find more internships, like they're a little bit more practical. And also I feel like in school, in the US for how it's structured, they there are more opportunities to like present stuff, especially towards the end of your master. I'm not talking about new grads. I'm talking about towards the end. You might present more. Might there is more review of your thesis. Like I feel like I worked a lot with my professor, and he would just sit there and listen to me present and like poke holes into my presentation. Right. So when I presented in Torino, all the entire committee was like, we were like, awake. They were engaged. And then I saw all the other presentations and some people were sleeping,
Wow.
because probably no professor at the Polytechnico did the same process of like, okay, we are treating your thesis as like your marketing material, right? It's your, like, you are selling yourself, not just the thesis, right? You are selling yourself as the best student or like whatever, right? So it's important how it's presented, how it's written, how the slides are formatted, how much text there is, how much images there are. All I see in Torino is it's not like to throw people under the bus or whatever, right? But there were all these slide decks packed with formulas, just walls of formulas and theory,
It's very difficult
and
to follow.
yeah, and then the committee would fall asleep, and have very high level questions. But when I came back with my thesis, which was like, already kind of, how can I say, vetted by my professor, right? Everyone, I mean, every slide was simple, just the concept, images, and so they followed really well and they asked very specific questions. How did you do this? How did you achieve that? And how did that work? And what's the tolerance on that? And blah, blah, blah. So, they were very engaged. And that's the US kind of like teaching you how to sell a presentation yourself, how to, I don't know, basically how to market yourself a little bit better. So it's a little bit more practical and focused on, you that have to go out there finding a job and selling yourself, right? You are a product, you're building your brand. In Italy, it's all about how intelligent and smart you are. Right? So if you are 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, it means you are the best and you are going to succeed. So that's a different like, mindset.
Definitely. I think like another important aspect that usually comes up at like every single batch also of the fellowship is about like the visa situation, right?
Yeah.
So I'll like to move to the US, and actually like studying in the US is one of like the most valuable options, of course, because then you also get like the permit. So I don't know if you want to like go a little bit through that how it works, because now kind of like also reached the American citizenship after like many years. So I don't know if you want to give a little bit of an overview of what are like the possibilities and what could be the journey for the people that are actually interested in coming
Yeah,
here.
yeah. So there are many ways, I think, to get here, and there is the academic way. And when I say the academic way, I mean visas that are specific for people that work in academia, right? So there are people that are undergrads or grads, which means they do the bachelor, the master. So they get like a student visa, right? So that's what I did, right? You do your top UIC, your, whatever. You find a way to go study in the US through your university. There is this F1 visa. So that's the student visa. You renew it every 6 months, every year. You consistently have to prove that you are in school. And they give you like this I-20 document that you show it at the airport, at TSA every time you are. And that's a great visa because it's cheap. Like it doesn't cost much. It's through school. Maybe it's like it's very cheap. And then at the end of school, it gives you the option to apply for the OPT, which stands for optional practical training. And that's your work visa as a student, like as a new grad, right? That's great for internships, even when you are in school, after you are in school, right? And it lasts for a long time. I don't know if Trump changed laws, but it's like 3 years, right?
Yeah,
And
I
then
think 2 years for STEM. If it's not STEM, maybe just 1 year.
yeah. I'm assuming STEM here, right? So engineering, stuff like
Science.
that. Oh, mine was 3 years at the time, 2014, right? And then it could be extended for 3 more years. I didn't need to because then I got a job and I got the H1B, which is the work visa. But yeah, if you don't get the H1B, which nowadays is getting more difficult, I know a lot of people that are not getting it, right? So you can extend.
It's a lottery, right? There is a lottery, and then there is like 100K component that was added recently also by Trump.
Yeah, I don't know what Trump is doing, but yeah, it's getting harder. right? And because also the H1B is a lottery kind of, so they have only a certain amount every year. Based on country, they allocate more or less. And so, I mean, I think for Italy, it's still easier, but like, for countries like China, India, it's really tough. And so if you have the OPT, you have the option to still work and hope for an
Yeah,
H1B,
you
right?
get another
I mean,
chance in the next time.
yeah, but I think nowadays, if it takes so long to do an H1B, if your company wants you, they can just do green card. Like even if you are on probably if you are on F1 with OPT for 6 years and you are staying at the same company, I actually have a friend that he's not on OPT, he's on E1, I think. What is it? Or L1? It's when they
L1,
transfer
they
you.
transfer from like a
Yeah,
multinational company that was maybe in Europe and now got transferred in the US offices.
yeah, yeah. So he got transferred from the office in Milan to the office in San Francisco, and they are doing his perm now. Perm,
No,
PE.
correct.
Yeah, yeah. So they're doing his green card because he's not getting the H1B, and also he can't really apply. It's weird, right? Because he has this L1, and so he cannot apply for the H1B, but the company can do the green card. But of course, you need to be asking. And actually, I want to touch on a very important point, right? All this visa stuff, it's not given to you. You know what I mean? Like you need to go out and get it, advocate for yourself, push, constantly ask, your company for when are you doing my H1B or when are you doing my green card? Like I want it. If you don't give it to me, I will leave, right? If you are in the position to where your company needs you and wants you, then you demand because otherwise the company will just keep you and they keep paying you. They don't need to spend more money on you. So you need to ask, right?
And they also have like more power over you, right? Because
Yeah.
if you are on H1B, it's not that you can, I don't know, take a sabbatical of like 6 months or like
Yeah,
whatever.
no.
If you don't have a job, I don't even remember, but it's like 2 or 3 months, like
Yeah.
another one. Otherwise, you need to leave the
Yeah.
country.
Yeah. I mean, I know people that are paid less on purpose, right? I mean, they don't have the power to negotiate that because the company knows, you cannot go anywhere else. I mean, it's sad, but it is what it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
They give
Yeah,
them
otherwise
less.
another popular option I think is like the one, right? So for exceptional skills, so there are like many people that maybe I
Yeah.
don't know they got some papers or like some publications or like some press. So
Yeah.
now it's kind of like becoming more and more common now that the
Yeah.
HR is
Yeah.
being
The
used.
old one is a great way. Yeah. Especially, but it's more for people like PhDs,
Yeah, exactly.
like people that have experience certain special skills in a field.
Or otherwise founders that maybe they also raise some
Yeah.
money. That's
Yeah, definitely. If you start a company, you are bringing money, investment, and of course, they want you. But if you are in school, right, you are young and you don't have any of those, then you need to go through like a student visa kind of thing, right? But yeah, it's getting a little harder, but it's still doable. I mean, of course, through school it's easier. Although they are also trying to crack down on like school visas. Here in the US now, it's a mess. But I mean, it's a mess politically, right? So they keep trying to crack down on visas, even in places where visas are needed. In school, in STEM, H1Bs, student visas, right? I don't know, but it's kind of a weird situation, but it can change. Next president, whatever. Like who knows? So
And then how was like your transition from like university to like start in the job market? Because you also had like a research experience, right, in Berkeley. So I was like that, and what's the difference also? Because of course you're like an electrical engineer. So how is it like doing kind of like engineering work in university versus like maybe in a company?
yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that come to the US, right? A lot of people do PhDs, right? So their goal is to do a PhD. Their goal is to do research, right? And they want to do it long term, or even postdocs. Like a lot of people that I met in Berkeley, unsurprisingly, were postdocs, right? Older than me, of course, and they finished their PhDs and they were working at the Lawrence Berkeley lab in the research field, right? So that's not what I wanted to do, but I ended up working there because, of course, when you're out of school, you try to get whatever job you can, right? Unless you have a very clear path, like maybe you did an internship during school and then they hire you, they convert you.
You have the
So
return.
this is a very important thing to know right here. There is like internship. It's kind of like il contratto determinato, right? something like a contract that's, time bounded. So internship can be a summer internship, whatever, right? I had an internship at Google. I had an intern at Google last year for 3 months, right? So he started in May and ended in August, right? So he's going to go back to school. He's in undergrad, but then next year he's going to have a new internship. So you keep building this work experience, and then eventually you try to get a company to convert you. So you are an intern, but then they offer you like an actual job offer to convert you. So that can happen, right? But if I didn't have that, because I didn't do any internship, because at the time I wasn't really thinking about it. I don't know. I was still in the Italian mindset of I go through school and I do great, and then I find a job.
Yeah,
Like,
after graduation and everything, I will think about
yeah,
job.
yeah, I'm thinking about it, like it's fine. But here people don't think like that, right? They think I need to do my experience as quickly as possible and build my resume. So yeah, I guess I was still having like a old Italian mindset. And so I didn't have these internships, right? And also, I feel like I didn't have the opportunity. Like my professor wanted me to work on his thesis. He didn't try to get me into a company, right? I know people, my friends that worked at Motorola, for example, as interns, because the professors, pushed them. They were like, hey, I know these people in Motorola. I think for what you do, like image processing, whatever, that would be a great experience. So let me put you in touch. Then they interviewed and they did 2 internships, 2 years. And then they got converted immediately to full time. And so, see, their path was very different. Like they went from school to internship to straight into the company where they did the internship for, while I did school, no internship, and then I was looking for a job, which is extremely hard because then the companies look at your resume and they don't see any work experience. And so they're like, okay, I mean, who are you?
Yeah, it's
I
kind of more risk, right, for them.
Yeah,
At
it's
the
more
end.
risk, but also they don't care. Like interviewed many people, right? I saw a lot of resumes over the years, right? And to be honest, when I look at the resume, last thing I look at is where they studied, right? I want to see what they did, right? So if I don't see that, then I also have less material to base my decision on, because I want to see something cool that I'm like, okay, this person worked there or did this. They seem very experienced. Then I interview them and I ask, right? If I don't see anything, then I'm like, okay. In fact, all these young kids in the US, right, doing the internship, like their resumes, they look like freaking monsters. Like, oh yes, I did that. Then you interview them and they don't know anything, right? But at least they understood, my
Yeah,
resume. It's like my flyer, right? I'm giving you my flyer, and that's my branding. So it's like an ad, right? When in Italy, people think I'm gonna put my thesis, I got 110 or 110 cum laude, right? And then when someone sees it, they're gonna be so impressed because it's whoa, right? But no, the reality is that no one cares. If it's a good thesis, yeah, you can sell it as your experience, which is what I did, right? So I highlighted my thesis. I built this. I tested it, whatever. Right? So it sounded like a mini work experience. That's all I had, right? Like this mini work experience. And so it's kind of difficult to then find a job because that's the only experience you have. And because companies look at your projects. So even if you maybe didn't do many internships, but let's say you built an opens project, right? That's cool. You If you are in hardware, maybe you built some prototypes or did something even on your own, right? But you need to do something. So whether that's an internship or you have something like an app on the app store, open source projects, hardware open source project, like whatever it is, you have to prove I did this. A website. A lot of interns that I saw built a website for themselves. So like instead of the resume, you open a website and you see all the cool animation. Who
Yeah,
am I? Where I studied, right? Again, they understand everything is marketing, right? So you are finding a job and you are trying to catch the attention of the hiring managers because there is so much noise. Thousands of people that want to work at all these companies, right? So how do you break through? And they try all possible things, but definitely having experiences, right? And so because I didn't have that, to finally answer your question, I I kept working for my professor. because he said, you built a very cool device for your thesis. I need it. If you keep working for me, can you make it smaller, longer battery life? It was like an actual small prototype, right? So it wasn't something like, theoretical, right? It was a real device. And so I think that was the only key, like how to keep working. It's like I built something that they need. And then they asked me, can you make it smaller, better, more accurate, right? And the scope, I think it was like for a year, right? Like we hire you for a year. We cannot pay you much. You're going to be like a hourly employee. So everyone at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, it's a postdoc. They're not hourly employees. They have a contract, right? They're full-time employees, 40 hours a week, whatever. I had an hourly contract, which is very unusual. It's like a contractor, right?
Hmm.
And so I could basically work as many hours as I wanted. And if I wanted to work 0 hours today, I just get paid zero today. So my experience was very chill, but that's not what I wanted, right? Like I actually wanted to find a job in the industry. But some people do want to find a job in the industry. Some people want to do research. So I actually had some mentees like going through the decision, and to me it was clear like he wants to do research. Like, he wants to nerd out on all this machine learning thing and find a new algorithm, and so you do research. But some people just want to go in the industry, right?
And then how were you able to actually make the transition then? Because you joined Fitbit, right? That was your first like work experience in a company.
Yeah, I joined Fitbit. Yeah, that was my first corporate job. And the transition was, again, I kept applying and trying to interview, applying and trying to interview. I had some interviews, right? But again, very young. So they have many young students. And the reality is that a lot of people might come from MIT and Stanford, especially here, right? Stanford.
Yeah, in the Bay Area.
Oh. If you come from Stanford and you have two internships versus if you come from UIC and you have zero internship, who are they gonna pick, right? I mean, they're gonna pick the guy from Stanford, right? So clearly, I had interviews, but I couldn't really find, like the opportunity to get in. But eventually, through networking, through meeting people, knowing people, one of my friends, he's Italian, he's from the same town of my mom, right, in Puglia, and so he was working here. He worked at many companies, Microsoft, Amazon, and he's a guy that thinks about the network, so he knows everybody. And so he wanted to help me, right? He was like, okay, who can I put you in touch with? Like, what company do you want to work for? Can you just put together a list? And I said, okay, these are all the companies. There's Fitbit, Apple, whatever. And it's like, oh, Fitbit, I know Sam Bowen, and Sam Bowen was VP of hardware at Fitbit because Sam Bowen worked with this guy at Microsoft or whatever. I don't remember. I will need to check on LinkedIn. But literally, what we did, he sent an email with me in CC to Sam Bowen and say, hey, Sam, long time no see. Whatever. I have a friend, Valentino. He's really good. He just graduated. He works at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, looking for a job in the city. I just want to, introduce you to, and he can send you his LinkedIn or resume. And then he responded like very positive. He was like, oh yeah, nice hearing from you. Hey, Valentino, send me your resume. I sent it. And then after a few days, HR just sent me a interview email, right?
Yeah, that is very different than just sending an application from the online website with like
Oh yeah,
competing with thousands of like other
yeah.
candidates.
If I had to go back in time, to be honest, like and this is something that I try to tell people, especially young people, or every time there are students coming and visiting, it's like how useless it is to just apply online. I mean, if you are like very experienced, they will reply. I did apply to OpenAI and Anthropic for hardware positions.
Yeah, but you already had like many years of experience in the
Exactly. But they did reply.
yeah.
They send me a reply and say, we don't think you are the best fit for this robotic position because of your background, it's not in robotic, right? If it was like a young student with no experience, they probably just wouldn't reply. Maybe it's automated and it says, yeah, thank you for applying. So in general, if you know people, right, that can refer you, even your friends that work at the company, like I referred so many of my friends or like friends of friends. They ask me, hey, can you refer my friend or whatever, right? Of course, I want to make sure these people are legit, right?
Yeah,
But then,
otherwise you lose also your reputation, right? So
yeah, I mean, to be honest, like the referral, it's again the internal referral process. Like I go on an internal website, I put your resume, write some words about you. It's powerful, but it's even more powerful what my friend did.
Yeah,
email
of course.
the VP. Like there is nothing better than like going straight to a person, from someone that they trust, right? Like that beats even the internal referral system, right? Because that guy probably took the resume, like the PDF, forwarded to like head of HR and said, "Hey, can you look at this guy?" And they prioritize just because the email came from Sam Bowen, right? So, but then of course, they're going to interview. So if you don't pass the interview, you don't pass the interview. Like my interview went extremely well. I studied, right? And I was fresh because I was doing a lot of things for my job at the Lawrence Berkeley Lab. So everything they asked me was like very aligned, which is also luck, right? Because they ask you, oh, how does like they asked me, I remember this girl working there asked me a question about transconductance amplifiers, which is something that, it's not something that you just remember like on top of your head all the time, right? But I happened to be working on a circuit to drive LED. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I actually just did that. So let me talk to you about this circuit. And she was, oh, yeah, this is perfect, So you also have to study and like, if you know the topics, that's like much better. And so, if you pass the interview and they give you an offer, then you take it, right? At that point, I didn't even try to negotiate. Other important topic, negotiation, right? Because you shouldn't just take what they try to give you, right? I didn't know. Like no one told me you ask for how much you want. Like seriously, like no one. Because all of my friends were in again postdocs, PhDs. They didn't go through the industry, right? So probably, Lawrence Berkeley Lab told them, you are going to make
Yeah, that's the standard.
140K, whatever. Okay. Right. So there is no, I don't know, maybe you can also in postdoc positions, but like no one told me, hey, if they give you an offer, be ready to negotiate. Like zero. I didn't know. I actually asked, I remember that someone told me, oh, they should pay you like 100K because it's an intro level position, right? And I thought, okay, then I'm gonna ask them for 95 because I don't want to sound too cocky, right? Oh, I'm pretending too much. I literally did. I literally like on the phone, she was like, "How much do you want?" I was like, 95. I think it's good. And she probably laughed, right, in her head, and they sent me an offer for 100, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
means the salary was 120, 130, right? So again, you learn the hard way, right? Because then once you're in the company, next year it's not going to be 130, right? It's
Yeah.
100, and it's like 103, then it's 105, 106, and you spend all these years, losing, like leaving money on the table, right? But that's a different story. Like, financial education, I think, like knowing how to negotiate and get the best deal, right? But when you're in school, maybe you don't think about money that much, or like in the level of detail, like, oh, I need to plan my salary and then I have to get more stocks because I need to buy this, or like, my retirement. You're just thinking about, okay, I need to save my visa. I need to stay here. I need to work, right? So that's what I was focusing on. And a lot of people do that, right? And they accept very low offers just because the company knows you have no other choice because you are on a visa, right? So they can offer you whatever. And even if sometimes if you try to negotiate, they're like, no, sorry, yeah, that's the offer, right? But I think it's important to learn it and try. Like I actually, helped some friends negotiate and they didn't get much more, but they got maybe a few more stocks, whatever that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Still like a terrible offer, right? But they got to stay, they got to work at the company. Then once you are inside, you're good. Yeah, they will treat you well, right? They sponsor your H1B, sponsor your green card. They want to keep you, and then maybe they promote you and they start like adjusting your compensation to their like media targets, right? So
And then
yeah,
like after you were able to put your foot kind of like into the industry, right, with Fitbit, then we are able to kind of like get jobs at like Apple, Google, like now at Meta. So how was then like the transition from like Fitbit, that was of course like a pretty well known company startup, but it's still like on a different kind of like size, right, than maybe like a big tech company. So why did you decide also to want to join Apple and go to a big tech company? And how was like this transition possible?
yeah. Well, of course, everything I say, I speak for myself, like from my experience. It's not the experience of everybody, right? but I'm very driven by, of course, compensation, right? And which wasn't my focus in the beginning, right? But then you start living in San Francisco and you're like, shit, I'm poor, like
Yeah.
I cannot afford anything. So how do I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I can enjoy. And so it's like, first thing you start to think, okay, who's gonna pay me a little bit more, right? Or you also think, if I change company, I can get a promotion, basically, right? Because unfortunately, this is probably true all over the world, right? You are in a company and it's hard to get promoted and to move, and it's hard to get paid more, right? Because I think nowadays I see I see people in companies in two separate categories. There is everyone else, so all the people that like engineers, program manager, and then there is the executive, like the C-suite, right? These are the people that decide, right? You don't decide. So you are playing a game of statistics. Your pay range, it's calculated, it's modeled. Like, who's making like real millions? It's people that run the company, right? So what you have to do, if you are an engineer or like a software engineer, whatever, you are just playing a game of, okay, how do I position myself so that my skills are paid, what they're really worth, and not like underpaid, or maybe you are really good and so you even get paid more. But again, it's because you are able to navigate this environment, right? So again, the people at the top running the company, everyone else is modern. Like, sure, even VPs, whatever, but you see nowadays how they hire people just because they are AI gurus, right? And they buy their company, or they pay, or they give them like these crazy packages. The rules don't apply, right? But if you are like someone that's like everyone else, then you play by rules. So you basically have to decide why you want to work in a certain company, right? And is it more because of like money or because of work? Because if the job is similar, like in my case, like I can be an electrical engineer at Fitbit or Apple, Google, Meta, right? Then I have to decide, okay, do I want to work on that project at that company? Are they paying me enough for that, or I'm happy where I am and maybe I have opportunity to grow, right? So I feel like it's something that you might be thinking a certain way in the beginning of the year, and then it adjusts every 3 6 months, right? So I always checked in and thought, okay, am I working on something that I like? Are they paying me enough, or am I leaving an opportunity to make more money and work on something else? So I feel like when the opportunities came, so I was at Fitbit and I never thought, oh, I'm going to leave, right? But then eventually Fitbit started like going down a little bit. People started leaving. And so then I started thinking, okay, maybe I should look for something else. Then Apple reached out, right? And Apple is a company where I really wanted to work for. So in this case, motivation, right? Because I thought, oh yeah, I'm an Apple fan. I have iPhone, MacBook, and it's a dream, right? To work on the iPhone. They didn't even reach out for like working on a side device. Like, it was iPhone system engineering. So I'm like, what else can I ask for, right? And of course, it's a 2% lower position because they try to hire young people to do like, actual work, like doing the schematics, layouts and stuff. And then they try to promote people internally to like managers and senior engineers, right? So it was a position still like more entry level, right? But they offered me more money. Or, number two, no negotiation whatsoever. Again, I didn't learn about all of this. So they just offered me and they say, oh yeah, yeah, 100%, right? And then I learned, yeah, I could have gotten maybe 10 to 20,000 more salary and maybe double the stocks or something like that, maybe 50% more stock, but I never even thought about it.
Can you maybe like explain a little bit how the compensation actually works, especially here in the Bay Area, right? Because
Yeah,
you have like the base, and then there is like stock. Of
yeah,
course, like maybe working in a public company as like Apple, Google, or Meta, you can like sell your stock immediately, so you have like more liquidity. Maybe working
yeah,
like Fitbit was different. Then you have
yeah,
like the vesting. Like giving like an overview about this, I think might be quite helpful,
yeah.
because maybe in many other places you just have your salary and that's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, it's an interesting point. I'm just gonna relate it to the topic of changing company, right? When I say you look at your financials, it's not just your stocks, it's not just your salary, right? Again, as you said, your companies, if they're public and they have, stocks. They give you stocks. So stocks is part of your compensation. They give it to you at a regular basis. So they grant you, they promise you, right? We promise you, I don't know, 1,000 Fitbit stocks, and you get 250 stock every year for 4 years. And each year, based on performance, they give you more stocks. So, okay, we promise you 100 more stock in 4 years. Next year, we promise you 150 stocks in 4 years. So that's a way for companies to keep you, right? Because the idea is we give you stocks, so like a small ownership in the company. If the company goes well, you're making more money, but it's also going to be harder for you to leave, right?
Yeah, it's like the golden
Yeah,
handcuffs.
the handcuffs. I didn't have golden handcuffs at Fitbit because my stock went from $20 to 5.
Okay.
So when you consider, okay, another company is reaching out, Apple, it's something that I really wanted to do. My Fitbit stocks are all-time low, right? So whatever Apple is going to offer me, it's so much better than what I have. So it's a no-brainer, right? Unless, I don't know, unless you have a specific reason to like stay where you are underpaid, right? Maybe it's, I love the office. It's in downtown. I live 1 block away. My rat is amazing, right? And I don't care. And I live with 4 roommates, but my commute is it's 5 minutes walking. I live in San Francisco and I don't want to go anywhere. Maybe you're like crazy, not crazy, but like your own very specific reasons. Otherwise, it's like, okay, they pay me more, right? So I'm going to do it. So I did the interview and everything. They give me the offer and I started working. And then, of course, again, over the years, you keep monitoring the situation. And it's like, okay, because people here reach out to you, right? Once you start working in big companies on LinkedIn, recruiters reach out. But 90% of the time, 95% of the time, it's not something you are interested in. Maybe it's like, you work at Apple. If someone reaches out from a startup, you might be like, I don't care. If someone reaches out from another small company, you're like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't. So you start like swiping left, right? And then yeah, it's like a dating, right? And so, but you keep monitoring your own situation, right? Maybe you are not getting promoted the way maybe it's not progressing as fast as you want. Maybe you are too stressed. Maybe the job is too stressful. Maybe you don't like it anymore. Maybe the new project they put you on, you don't like it. Maybe they didn't give you enough money during your performance review and you thought that you deserve more. I think that was my case at Apple, right? I understand I was not at the like staff level position, right? But I always work to improve, right? But they always try to give me the same over and over again. So at some point you get kind of tired of that. And so that's when you open up and you're like, I'm ready now to move on, right? Even though you might like the company, but it's not good for you anymore, right? Because yeah, you live in a comfortable life, whatever. But I feel like some people more than others are driven by financial stability and success. I'm like very driven by that, and so I constantly adjust. And if I see that it's not going in the trajectory I like, then I look at something else. And so yeah, of course, you want to work on something you like and a company that you believe in, and it's not like you hate the company, but you do it for the money. But at the same time, if in my case, Google reached out to me, and so that was like I feel like it's always they reach out at the perfect time, because if for 3 years they reach out on LinkedIn, they're like, no thanks, no thanks. Eventually, you are ready, and when they reach out, they're like, oh yeah, let's talk. And then I interviewed with Google, and I got a much better offer, right? And then very fast I got promoted. So I feel like that was when I started understanding. First of all, I didn't make the mistake at Google. I negotiated like super hard, and I asked for so much money, and they were like, we cannot give it to you. And I was like, I don't care. I want like this salary. And they were like, no, we cannot give it to you. I mean, at the time, that was still like not an entry level, but a normal engineering position. And I remember I was like, I want a 200K salary. But usually that's more like for the intermediate engineer. Then of course it gets higher than that. But I was like, oh, 200K. And they were like, nope, we cannot give it to you. But they started from 140. So they gave me more than that, but not 200K. So, at the end, again, you need to push, right? So hard, right? And that's the same when I went to Meta. I also tried to push. They were a little bit more strict, but still try, you do have to negotiate. Then if you are not happy with it, it's up to you to say no, right? But you push as much as you can, then you decide, right? And then just to go back to Google, right? At Google, I've been there for 5 years, the longest I've been at any company, and I always liked it. But then again, it gets to a point, maybe you're bored, maybe it's the same project over and over again. Maybe you're ready for something new, right? So you get a new job. Here, I don't know, in Italy nowadays, I don't live in Italy, right? So I don't know how much people change jobs. If it's the same, they reach out. I do have friends that like always tell me, this recruiter reached out and they're changing jobs quickly. So I feel like it's not that different, the situation. And I'm teaching them, you should negotiate. Like, it doesn't matter that you are in Italy, right? They will always try to give you X, and then, you ask for Y and they give you Z, right? So it's kind of similar, but the difference, as you said, the biggest difference here is the stocks, right? Because stocks are an asset, right? And now I don't want to spend like, a lot of time thinking about finance, but in Europe, we think about cash a lot, right? Like everything is cash. How much do you make a month net in your paycheck, And it's very static, but you build wealth only with assets. Like, well, I mean, if your family has a company, right? Or like houses and they rent, they build wealth because they have properties and assets, right? And then stocks are also assets. So here, the way people succeed in like financially, right? Even if they don't do anything crazy at all. Maybe they're like, normal engineer, right? But maybe they worked at a company that did really well, right? And so your salary will always be the same, goes up steadily, over the years, right? You change job, whoop, change job, whoop, and then every year they adjust, right? So your salary will always get better, I think. But then what really matters is, are you working for a company that's set up for success? So you also have to be picky, right? I guess that's why people go to work for startups, because
Yeah, the
they
upside
say,
can be huge.
yeah, it's like the upside can be huge. I'm willing to not make the stocks right now. Maybe I'll make them in the future. Well, the other mindset is, I don't want to work for startups because I don't want to have the uncertainty, right? And so I work for these big companies. I accept all the bad, the good and the bad, right? Because it's not all amazing, right? There's a lot of politics. There is a lot of, games you have to play for your performance review, right? You're always selling yourself constantly. It's like, look at me, I did this, I did that. Look at the impact of this. It's amazing. So you're always playing this game of trying to brand yourself and, make it sound like you did incredible things to get, promoted, to get more money, right? When in startups, I feel like it's more about really, you need to do the work that's needed by the startup, right? There is less games. I think it's not like, a process where HR, your manager sits there with a bunch of people to define your grade on the performance. It's more natural, right? If it's 20 people, right? It's going to be like, did you do the job? Are we progressing? Is the company growing? That's when you might see the upside, right? So good and bad, right? You decide whether you want to be paid now or maybe later, right? But yeah, the main difference between Europe and here, like all the people I know in Italy or whatever, they don't get any stocks. It's cash, so they try to maximize their salary, which is a great thing. But their wealth is gonna grow, steadily and consistently. Maybe they invest on their own like this. Here, you can really grow more like exponentially, right? And it's because you choose to work in certain companies that give you stocks, right? And then stocks go well, so you hold on to them and they grow. And once they grow, after a certain point, you have enough wealth to basically be more free to decide which company you want to work for, right? Maybe I don't want to go anywhere. It was hard for me to leave Google because I had a lot of stocks. And when I tried to leave, they said, here. And I was like, damn, what do I do? Because now it's hard. But I still decided to go to Meta. Right now, if I kept the same job, I would have more stocks at Google, like more value. But it's, you don't predict the future, whatever. Yeah, it's a very important thing to consider here, like your overall compensation. If you're in a startup, maybe trying to get more ownership of the company. So when you join, it's like, okay, how much of the company do you give me? Right. And if you join a big tech company, it's like negotiating hard, going on, knowing all the stats and the numbers and be like, okay, where can I position myself? At the end, they will give you their media, right? But if you don't advocate for the higher side, they will try to give you the low side, right? So they start from here. You advocate for this, and they give you exactly what they were supposed to give you in the first place. That's exactly how it works. But I think all over the place, also in Italy, like whatever. So I hope that that answer,
Yes,
I talked a lot, but I hope that it answers the
yeah,
question.
absolutely. And I think like also another topic that is quite important is about the ecosystem, right? Like your surroundings. Of course, like proximity to those opportunities is like very, very important. Like, how much do you think that actually staying like here in Silicon Valley helped you to kind of like achieve like all those things, like working in like cool projects, having also like kind of like a financial compensation for like
Yeah.
work that you do. It's kind of like a unique environment, right?
Think it's 100% of the, I think it's super important. If I weren't here, none of this would have happened. So yeah, the proximity, I mean, I think, right, because I've been here for a long time, and everything I did is because I knew the people, I met people at work. I grew my network, like, and also I'm not a software engineer. Like in hardware engineering, the world is small, right? So like, everybody, and they go to different company, and you call them and like, hey, do you have do you have a spot? It's almost like calling for a restaurant. Hey, you had like one seat? Oh yeah, sure, yeah, let me check. And so yeah, if you are not here, you are gonna build your network somewhere else. So if you're in Italy, and you work at, I don't know, you're an engineer at Ferrari, like whatever, right? You're going to build your network there, and the opportunities will come in the automotive world in Italy or like in Europe, right? But if you are here, of course, the opportunities will come in all these companies that are physically here. And if you are here, then of course you get compensated for as someone that's here. Like they're not gonna, hire you here and pay you and tell you to go work in Italy, right? So proximity is 100%. Even though you might not be in the office every day, or like nowadays it's more flexible, but you're not going to go anywhere else. If you go somewhere else, then everything gets adjusted, and you build your network somewhere else.
And then also like in terms of like the day in the life, like how is it is like working in a big tech company? Like how much is it on like real engineering work? How much is it like maybe like meetings or like other things that you need to do? Like now that you also are also more senior, I guess it's gonna be more about like management, like you mentioned an intern or also like hiring.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. And obviously you might want to become more of a, manager or an individual contributor. I think one of the main differences between here and a place like Italy or Europe, maybe I don't want to talk for Europe, but like Italy, is that a lot of people feel like they're the only way to really progress in their career, and really, make money or go up in status, is you have to become a manager, do some sort of management, right? Because if you're an engineer, there's only so much. But here, you can be an engineer your whole life and become like the principal engineer of the team, and you run every program, or like an entire program. They will pay you tons of money that managers in Europe, like directors, VP, don't see. So like, it doesn't matter what you want to do, it's up to you, right? So right now, actually, like the day in the life, right? Because I'm a individual contributor, I had an intern at Google, but I don't manage people. I don't have reports to me. So I have a lot of free time that I don't have to deal with one-on-ones. So, checking with people, making sure that they grow in their career, and they do. So I don't do any of that. So my job is technical, right? I design hardware, I design product. And so a lot of meetings I'm in are actually useful. It's like, it's a meeting where we talk about the technical detail. We look at the design. We discuss, where should we put this? Can we move this? Is that going to work? Can we assemble it that way? Right. So useful meetings. It's not meetings where you sit and you're like, oh my God, I'll kill myself. Or it's some meetings where, again, it's some manager meetings where you discuss the performance of people, especially in times during performance review. Managers are like, so busy, because if they have like 20 reports or like stuff like that, then they have to like, write the achievements of everybody. So if you're a manager, the day in your life, it's a lot of meetings, of course, and much more pressure to like, deal with all your reports and stuff, and more politics, right? Because unfortunately, you will have to grade people, put some people above and some people beyond. But for someone like me, I actually have fun at work. I mean, fun, for as much fun that you can have at work, right? It's not like fun like in the sense of going skiing, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's fun in the sense of, okay, I'm building something cool. Like it's a cool project. It's a cool job, and I'm using my skills that I built over like my entire, career, right? And so I try not to have many meetings that don't apply to me again, and that's a choice, right? So if it's a meeting where I don't need to be, maybe I don't go. And I try to minimize like weekly meetings. Maybe if we need to talk about something, let's schedule. Okay, let's talk about it, tomorrow, one time, right? Not every week or whatever, right? And so I feel like the day in the life of someone that works at a big tech company, it's more like trying to stay out of too many meetings and trying to be on a project that you like and have visibility. Because if you're on a project it's a side project, yeah, you might have fun, but maybe you're not gonna get promoted or like make a lot of progress. So it's up to you. You self-regulate how much you want to work and how much you want to put the effort to like get promoted, or maybe you want to lead the project and not just work on a project, right? So it just depends. Some people, I feel like here in the Bay Area, right, a lot of engineers, you know, go up in the level until they become senior or staff, and that's where a lot of people park. It's like, that's my level, it's gonna be very hard to become principal. I like what I do. They pay me. I mean, but by the time you are like 50 and you work for 20 years in tech in companies that give you stocks, I don't think you need to worry about money. And so you're like, okay, they give me a lot of stocks every year. They pay me really well. I have a family, I have kids, like all my coworkers, 100%, like this. And so a lot of people just stay there and they're happy, right? And so I think their life is not too hectic. They just stay, go in meetings, do their thing, go to the office 2 or 3 times a week, and life is good. But it takes a long time to get there, right? Like in the beginning, it's more uncertain, especially you don't have the visa, or like you don't know, so it's always on edge. But I don't know. I never worked in a startup. The most similar thing to a startup was the Lawrence Berkeley Lab, because no one was helping me. And so I felt like, yeah, it felt really startup-y. I need to do this. How do I do it? I'm going to buy something on Amazon. I need that tool on Amazon. That doesn't happen in a big company. There's a lab, right? There's stuff like that. So I can only give advice or like explain the experience of someone that worked in a big company.
But you also have like this kind of like interest, right, in startups. Like maybe you develop like the event platform, right,
Yeah.
on your own. Then maybe you work on like a side project about this, a side project about that. And of course, it's very difficult, I think, at a certain point to decide, okay, I'm gonna go all in on
Yeah.
this idea and like leave all the stocks. All
Yeah.
my compensation and everything. But are you thinking like about this? Like maybe I don't know. I mean, now you just joined Meta, so I guess you're probably gonna want to make an impact there. But maybe one day, like in the future, is there like a path where you're gonna be like an entrepreneur, like a founder, be more involved in the startup?
Yeah. I think it's a great question. Yeah, it's true that I like to work on side projects. So, and I think I started working on this side project when it was slow at work. I feel like my brain needs something to work on, right? And so, yeah, you're right that I never actually tried to turn it into a company, even though I thought about it. Because in a way, it's true. Like, you live here, and so if you want to preserve your a certain lifestyle, like there is a lot of inertia that goes with your
Yeah, the
life.
opportunity cost is huge. Like that's certainly.
Yeah, but it's true. But also, again, some people maybe come here, maybe you're young, with the idea, okay, I come here because I'm working on my stuff. So now your mindset and your life revolves around that, and you build a life that goes in that direction. If someone tells you quit your startup, come work at Meta, you might be like, no, I need to like do my startup, because now all your expenses have been like adjusted around that, your lifestyle, your decisions, blah blah blah. Now, if you work for like 10 years in a big company, lifestyle is adjusted to that, and then they tell you can work at a startup, and I'm like, hmm, how am I gonna live? I mean,
Yeah,
it's not because you spend money on like VIP tables at the club, but it's because your life is built around a certain income, or like again, even just the way you think about life. Like, okay, I live here, I have to pay this rent, or I bought a house, or whatever, right? So now, how do I adjust? It's a big step. So maybe it would be interesting to do it, but again, maybe some people are more entrepreneurs in the sense that they know how to network more, or like pitch whatever. I feel like people like me are very technical. And so I feel like I have more fun doing the technical part of it than I'm gonna start my own company and be like the CEO of the company, and now I have to deal with the company. Be nice to have like someone that's maybe like a non-technical founder, someone that can be the CEO, whatever.
Who's gonna handle the operations or the business part and just focus on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
technical part.
So, but I think the biggest factor is your job, your life, your lifestyle. How is it going to change? What do you have to adjust? And are you willing to adjust it? Right. Like actually before joining Meta, I thought not with the event app, but with my project about AI for electrical engineering. I thought maybe I should pitch it to like YC, right? And maybe I quit Google. So maybe like I pitch it, right? If I get a job, if I get in, maybe I quit Google, right? But then I thought, man, okay, they give you this money. Then, you have to like pay yourself in some way, right? How am I gonna live? Like, what next? Because it's not gonna be 3 months, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's like you are in, there's a boot camp, like whatever. Then once you are out, you are running the thing. You have to monetize it. You have to, and if it doesn't work, of course you have to go back to work,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Maybe like you're also hiring some people, so now you're also
Yeah.
responsible for other people. It's not that you can just decide from one day to another, okay, I'm gonna quit and
Exactly. Exactly. So it's a lifestyle adjustment that, when Meta came out with the opportunity, then I said, okay, that plan can wait.
yeah, I remember.
Like I was like, this plan is much more, I know where it's going. It's like, okay, I know what I'm going to work on. I know the company. I know how much they pay. Of course, we can talk about layoffs. It doesn't mean you are safe, right? But at the same time, if they lay me off, I don't want to sound like I'm super cocky, right? But they can lay me off. They pay you how many months of like
Yeah,
severance. Like
severance. Yeah.
in that time, I can find another job. So I felt like it's way more dangerous to try to do your own company than getting laid off, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like an order of magnitude of like difference. Like,
Yeah, it's not even close. I'm like maybe in the future, because I don't think there is an age to do it. Like you can be a founder at like 40. Like it can happen anytime in life, right? So maybe I thought, okay, I want to build like a solid foundation first. One day, get to a point where I can quit and be okay even if I don't get paid like zero, right? And
yeah.
maybe that day I'm gonna feel more confident. Be like, okay, I'm gonna do my own business because I don't need to depend on the company.
You mentioned like about layoffs. Of course, here is kind of like easier to do because it's kind of like a twill, right? So they can terminate you. Of course, there is severance, but
Yeah,
it's way more like flexible market. How have you seen like the impact of kind of like AI and like automation in the last recent years, right? Even in big tech companies, there have been like huge layoffs. How do you see like the world even in the next few years? There is like Dario from Anthropic that is kind of like saying that everything is going to be like automated just in like 2 or 3 years. Some people have like kind of like longer time horizons. And what do you think that people should like maybe focus on, even in terms of like skills?
yeah. It's an interesting question. Personally, I don't think, I use AI every day. I use it a lot. And I'm trying to use it more and more in my job. And I'm trying to get my team to adopt it. Right. So, I'm not shying away from it. Right. But I don't think that they fire people because the AI can do, like, especially engineers. Like it's true, like AI software engineer, but I use AI every day. Right. And if you told me that, if I had like 5 software engineers and you told me we're gonna, lay off 2 because we have AI, like I wouldn't believe it, because, if you try to code, with AI, you realize if you don't know what you're doing, it's like it's a mess, right? So maybe it has a little bit of impact in the sense that maybe engineers are a little bit more productive. Like I don't have data. Maybe big companies collect the data on productivity. Maybe they saw a jump in productivity. I don't know, but I don't think people are directly getting laid off because they get replaced by AI. I don't think that Meta, let's say Meta, right, or like Google, whatever, they're fighting 1,000 engineers and they become 1,000 cloud code. That's not what's happening. I feel like it's just becoming more accepted, and there are no laws to protect people here. So it's not like the government is going to step in and say that's not possible, right? In fact, when they do layoff in Europe, they cannot, right? Like they have to give a certain notice, and then they know they will get laid off, but maybe in 6 months, or like in a year. Countries like France, whatever, they cannot just say tomorrow you are out or today. Like here they do it. It's like you try to log in and you are out, and you get an email saying, unfortunately, your job was terminated. Right? This can only happen here. I don't know in how many countries in the world, like, but definitely here, and it just getting more accepted. Like it's not like people go in the street and protest. They get laid off and they're like, oh, they came in for 5 months and then they find a job. It's not that easy for everybody. Like some friends that I have took more than 4 or 5 months to find a job. It can be hard, right? But at the same time, there is no protection. So companies figured out that they can hire, right? Then once the expenses get too high, whatever, or it's not even expenses. It's like, because probably AI is just changing direction quickly, right? So maybe companies are prioritizing different projects. So you are not getting fired because Cloud Code replaces you. You are getting fired because we are not going to work on this anymore, right? We are going to work on this product. This product had 10,000 people, but here we need 5,000. So we lay off 5,000, right? It's just, we don't need to pay this many people because our priorities are shifting. And I just think that companies are trying to, find the holy grail, right? So now everyone, AI, of course, it's useful, but no one really found a way to really monetize it besides Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, that provide you the model and you pay, right, to use the model. But a lot of companies are trying to figure out, trying to guess, let me throw AI into this, that, and see if it works, right? We'll know in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, how it works out. And so I think it's not really, AI that's replacing people. It's the companies are changing priorities, right? So they decide that's not going to be, it's not profitable. But now with AI, we can make this profitable. Like we can brand it so people believe it, There's a lot of hype around it, I think. But at the same time, to answer your question, like skill sets for
Yeah, what
young
you can
people.
do, like,
Yeah, what you can do is, use AI like as much as possible and find ways to make it useful, in your field. And then I don't know, like it can be anything, like create a workflow or like improve the way you do certain things with AI and have people adopt it. Create a project that you can showcase, right? Because it's software, right? So if people that are watching this podcast are doing software engineering, right? Maybe you can build something that you can show, right? You can build a product or like a prototype, and then you can put it in your resume, right? Or show that you know how to use AI, or maybe you build something useful with AI, right? And I think maybe by doing this, if everyone does it, eventually someone will find ways where AI, will find applications where AI becomes really useful, and that can create like opportunity for a business, whatever, right? But yeah, definitely not shying away from AI, but trying to use it like, as much as possible to understand how can I really, I use it for everything. I'm doing my taxes with Cloud Code. I gave all my documents and I'm like, we're going to do my taxes and we're going to project what happens if in 2026, 27, 28, it's like a tax advisor, right? So, stuff like this, you use it and you understand the limitations, right? Then you go to work and you're like, oh, I learned that I can use AI to model things. So maybe I'll do it for electrical engineering. Maybe I'll do it for software engineering, right? So I think it's the one, number one thing to do is just use it as much as possible for everything, even things that you wouldn't say, oh, why would I use Cloud Code for taxes? Try,
yeah, yeah. I think
it's
this
really powerful.
is one of like the greatest thing about kind of like staying here, because of no, there is like in this saying that is what the nerds are doing on the weekends is gonna become like the next thing for like everybody else, like in the future. So there are like many cool technologies, even for self-driving cars like Waymo,
Yeah.
robotaxi from Tesla. What are you like very excited about? Like something that you're also like working on at Meta, or like in your also like specific field on day-to-day technologies that you think are gonna become huge?
Yeah, this self-driving thing, it's amazing. Yeah, I use it all the time. No, unfortunately, people might argue it's taking jobs from drivers, but I don't know. At the same time, it's creating a lot of jobs for the people that design these things. And I think I don't know. It's inevitable that eventually things will change. Yeah, definitely, like self-driving, and I don't think we actually saw a major shift yet in the way we use technology with AI. AI is still helping us. Like it's a chatbot, it finds information, we ask things, we learn things, but I, there is no AI operating system, AI device that doesn't have a touch and you just talk to it, and knows everything. Like, people try to do it, of course, but it doesn't exist. I feel like no one can think of the use like a UI or an experience that's not your standard experience. A keyboard, your laptop, phone, you touch, you have apps that you install and you do this and you do that, right? So I feel like in the future, it should be something completely different, like an experience where maybe the AI generates UI for you. Maybe, you do have a phone, but nothing is designed. It's like you ask something, it generates whatever you need, like literally an AI operating system. Or can talk to you, things like
Like
that.
Jarvis of like Iron Man, that kind of like level.
Yeah, I mean, why do I need to? Yeah, again, going back to like developing apps, like I developed an app. I mean, for more than 10 years, almost 20 years, right? This model of mobile development has become ubiquitous, right? So if you want to do something, you think about either a website or an app. But then the app has to go through, Apple, Google. They decide if you go on the market, if you go on the App Store, how you can go on the App Store. Like, why can't I just have, like a phone where there's no app? If I need a certain service, it should be just like generated with AI. APIs everywhere, where every company, provides the API for the AI to do things on your phone. It doesn't exist, and maybe it's not going to exist for like many years. I don't think that the AI in the sense of chatbot can go that far. Like there is a limitation, and also it's controlled by the company that makes the app, right? So if OpenAI makes the app, it decides what's on the app. If Google makes Gemini the app, it decides what's on the app. So it should be more like integrated into your device, and the hardware itself, it's going to evolve, right? And so maybe more and more AI and LLMs will be able to run on your device instead of on the cloud, and you have to pay someone to do that, right? So I don't know. Maybe in the future, again, hardware is going to keep increasing. Maybe these phones, laptops will start having like dedicated hardware just for inference. And then a lot of LLMs will just run on the device. And I think it should become cheaper because it's incredibly expensive. I ran some experiment for my, electrical engineering agent with Opus 4.5. I ran a couple of reviews. I spent $30.
Well,
I mean, you know, you cannot afford $30 for three experiments. It's crazy. It should be something that, it either costs cents or you run. But of course, they want to, monetize the model. Right? Now, the only way it's monetizing models. I mean, everything else is adding AI here and there, and you just say, yeah, cool. It's what it is, right? Do you use Gemini in Google Docs? I don't. I mean, I ask something, it just summarizes whatever I see.
yeah, for the recordings.
Yeah. I mean, that's that starts to be useful, right? But at the same time, again, it's just like get this information, write it down. Get this information, summarize. It's not creating anything. I think it should really create an operating, like there should be an AI LLM operating system, and you just talk to it. Create me a UI to visualize my trip to Italy, right? And it creates your itinerary. Like it should be like that. I don't know. Maybe in the future it's gonna be like this. Who knows?
Yeah, and like maybe like about the kind of like the work-life balance part, like the lifestyle, because of course, like you're very like driven by kind of like working on interesting things, kind of like developing further on your career and everything. But at the same time, like you have like so many like cool hobbies, like so many activities that you do. So like of course, especially in a place like Silicon Valley, people tend to be like very busy, like very focused on what they are doing. It might be difficult to also find time for like other things outside of work. So that's kind of like something, of course, like well known. How did you manage in kind of like your career, like in your life, to also find space for your hobbies, for like your things? Yeah, what do you like to do also in your free time?
Yeah. So I think it's up to you to manage your free time. Like, I mean, a company can keep you busy, right? But there's only so much that they can keep you busy. At the end of the day, you're working with people. So it's up to you to develop the skill to be able to work with people in big teams, being collaborative, but at the same time knowing where it stops, like where the boundary is. And I feel like that can change over time, right? I feel like now I'm busier than I was before. or like I keep myself busier than I was before. So that gives me less time for hobbies, right? But I'm not a different person. It's just like I decided I'm going to put more time into this problem and I want to work on it. And maybe at work, I want to do this a little bit better or like, whatever. And then your time shifts. So it's up to you. Tomorrow I can say, you know what? I don't want to spend time working on this anymore. I just want to do my job, right? And then my time will shift. And now I would have more free time because I just see it as an allocation, right? You sleep and then there is like your time. And so if you decide, okay, I need 4 hours to do my work, then I have 4 hours to do something else. If you say no, I need 8 hours because it's very complex and it needs to be done, then you have zero for other stuff. And so I think it's very personal, right? And some people say, oh, Apple or certain companies can be more stressful. It's true, but you draw the line. At the end of the day, if someone texts you at night, you decide whether to respond or not. You know the consequence of it, right? Maybe you don't respond and the person will not have a response, but you made a decision like this is my free time. It's 10 p.m. and I don't respond at 10 p.m. and they have to deal with it. But then the next day you might be like extra nice to them, and like try to help them and schedule a meeting instead of saying, oh, they reached out, they need me. So now I replied. So I sacrifice my time for, for them. It's a balance. It's a game of knowing how to, be with people because the company, again, it's not a robot, like an entity that gives you things to do and takes your free time. It's there people around you that try to take your free time. If they're not respectful, as many companies they might not be. And so you draw your boundaries. But some people, their hobby is their work. So if your hobby coincides with your work, right, then your free time is 100% because you are doing your hobby, 16 hours a day. I don't know. I like doing things like skiing, motorcycling, I like music. So I like to DJ. Not all these things take a lot of time. Like I don't DJ every day or like practice every day. Right? But if it's the time to do that, I'm not going to think about work when I do it. So it just depends. I don't know. I know people that have a lot of hobbies. And so maybe they work really hard. And then as soon as they stop, they start working for their hobby and they never stop. Then I know people or co-workers that maybe don't have that many hobbies and interests. So, they work, they go home, there is their family, and that's their free time. It's like, oh, it's my family, right? Or they keep working. Like my manager at Google, which is amazing, right? He's so passionate about electrical engineering. So he goes home, right? And makes a video decoder on an FPGA, right? Has not a clue with work, right? But he goes home and he decides to spend his time to build a FPGA project because that's his hobby, right? So for him, work and hobby is kind of the same thing. But he's happy. He's not like stressed. Oh, I work so much because it's like I go to work and I get to drive three three projects. I go home and I get to play with the FPGA. It's like a toy. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
other people go home and wanna go to the gym. I wanna play music. It's a different thing. So again, I don't know. I encourage people to draw the line. I've seen people literally bringing their laptop to like, Tahoe, yeah, vacation. They open it and they do some work and they're not really doing that much. It's just they're convincing themselves I need to do it because if I stop, it's not going to move forward. But they decided that's where they draw the line. Like I'm having too much fun. So now I have to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's kind of,
yeah. Sure.
it's a psychological thing. It's not a company that forces you to do this, do that, or at this time. It's up to you. I don't know. And then you decide, and based on what you decide, you're gonna have consequences, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, especially I think in like those big tech companies, you have quite a lot of like flexibility, right? So it's not that you have your manager kind of like
Yeah,
checking in every single hour. Hey, what are you doing? Did you
yeah.
do this? It's like more about managing your time well and kind of like
Mm.
doing things with
Yes, I
much
mean,
more.
some manager will micromanage more than others, and some managers will, breathe on your neck more than others, and that's why I think for some people it's harder maybe to like draw the line because you get this peer pressure, like from the people above you, like, hey, have you done this? When is it gonna be ready? So. I mean, we are human, right? If I pressure you every day, then eventually you will start feeling more anxiety and stressed, and you feel like, okay, I need to do this because they pressure me. Again, it's other people, right? So you need to, if you decide to draw the line and be like, hey, I get it, but right now I cannot do this, right? It's not, it's Saturday, I'll do it on Monday. It's Sunday, I'll do it on Monday, right? I mean, it's up to you, but I get it. If the people that you work with are putting pressure on you, then it is what it is. So some people get really stressed about it. Maybe they want to draw the line, and they have a hard time because they try and they get pushed back, right? Oh no, we need this today, we need this tomorrow, right? So I don't know, but it's not just a Silicon Valley thing, right? It's an everywhere kind of thing. It's just that here, of course, you people here work. I mean, it's like work. It's a big part of lives, and so maybe it's different in certain other countries where there is more a distinction. Like, oh, I'm not working, so we don't talk about it, right? Here it's like everyone wants to know, what you're doing, whatever, right? So yeah, what do you do? I also don't like it, but then I end up asking the same question to people. I meet someone and we talk, and then I think, what does this person do? Huh? I don't know. I feel like I'm missing a very important piece of information.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe in other places it doesn't matter, but then I think, oh, this is wrong. I shouldn't ask what do you do, but I'm really curious. Like, what do you do? Because it drives your lifestyle in the Bay Area. I think, right? I just want to know what you do, uh, and yeah, it's a learned behavior, right? It's something that you see people do it to you. You do it back.
yeah, as part of the local culture. Like
Yeah.
maybe as a closing question, like you of course gave a lot of advice, a lot of like mentorship, like even when you hosted the fellows in the previous batches. But what do you think is like the best advice that you ever received so far?
The best advice I have ever received. It's a good question. It's a good question. I cannot think of any specific time that someone sat down and like gave me a straight advice, but maybe my manager at Google, like just advising me on how to deal with certain situations at work, right? Like if you want to succeed at work, I feel like my mindset coming from a technical background, it's always been I am knowledgeable. I know the skills. I do my design. The design works well, so I'm good. And so you have to promote me and compensate me for that because I'm so good. I'm exaggerating, right? But the idea is that I did this perfect circuit that doesn't have problems. I validated it. I show you, look, perfect, right? So I should be at this point. I should be CTO, right?
Yeah.
No, like because the problem is that you don't work in a vacuum. You're working with a lot of people, right? And a lot of time, people would reach out to me, and I would be a little bit dismissive. Like, oh yeah, you have this problem. There's nothing to do about it. Sorry, cannot help you. But then seeing my manager, he would try to help them in every possible way, even if he couldn't really. But he would try to help them and point them to maybe you should try this and try that and be like you are dedicating your time. Maybe you're super busy. You're stopping what you're doing to like write a big email, schedule a meeting, talk to 30 minutes to this person, and this person doesn't. You don't owe them anything, but it happened to me then that I needed to work with some people that I had a difficult time. And that, he gave me some advice. It was like, why don't you schedule a meeting and try to, or maybe sit down with him, spend some time fixing this problem with him, which is, his problem, not my problem, but doesn't matter, right? Like you are the one helping this person, right? And so it's not just about you and how many things you know. It's not an interview, where I ask you a technical question and you have to do it. And if you know it, you are like, okay, knowledgeable, right? That he gave me this advice of like, try to be nicer, or like try to be more helpful or, really put the extra effort with people. Because at the end of the day, that helps you indirectly, right? You help everybody. Imagine that you help like the entire company. Then everyone in the company knows, this person it's very helpful, and everyone loves you, right? And then when it comes to promote you, who's gonna get more attention, right? You, because not only you are a good engineer, but you also are a person that helps people, right? And so I think this was one of the best advice was like, build your, like, don't have people like hate you, not hate you, but maybe also even just don't know anything about you or don't think anything about you because you never help them or they don't know who you are. Like it's not just about your technical stuff. It's actually I'm starting to realize it's more about everyone else. And then I remember like in 2024 or five, like the New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
Okay, this year is I called it people year. This is gonna be my people year. So how do I go from my approach to people of being very cold? So it's like, what's your problem? Okay, I see it. It's not my problem. It's that guy's problem. Go talk to that guy. What's your problem? You idiot. You didn't compute the tolerance correctly. Go do your tolerance analysis. No, I said, okay, this guy comes to me. He didn't understand the tolerance. I'm like, hey, you know what? Let me explain let's go through it. I think there was a mistake in the tolerance computation. I'll compute it for you. I'll do it for you. And then I send it back and then, oh, thank you so much. Now, that person likes you. Then the next person will like you and the next person will like. So you are trying to, yeah, you are spending more time and effort, but you are building a network of people that can then support you. Maybe it's more important, maybe towards, more of a senior position. Maybe in the beginning, you do want to focus on doing technical stuff, but at the same time, you shouldn't close yourself in your silo of being the engineer. And so all I have to worry about is technical stuff. And then the program manager and all the people around me that get paid more deal with people and problems, right? I think you should put yourself in the mindset of, I'm part of this team, this company. How can I be, maybe act as someone above you, even if you're not,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Super, super useful. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dan Valentino. And yeah, see you around.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. It was fun having this talk.
Absolutely.
Right. See you soon.